I told you sedans are making a comeback. In fact, they are not going anywhere. I was the first to tell you. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody said SUVs are in favor. I said sedans aren't going nowhere. Everybody said EVs are in favor. I told you combustion engines aren't going nowhere. In fact, they're making a comeback. This right here is a combination of the two. It is a sedan and it is a combustion engine. Back when GM was in their peak of cars, not SUVs. And this right here is the car that refuses to die. Today we're going to review a 2008 Chevy Malibu, okay? This is the 2012 model, okay? And they made this one all the way up until, if I'm not mistaken, it was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I believe they redesigned it in 2013, okay? Or it could have been 2014. But anyway, this is the car that refuses to die because Chevy's still making it. So with that being said, let's give you a tour of the interior and exterior features of the last living breed of Chevy sedans and why you want to pay attention to why this car has not been discontinued yet, because it might just spawn a new breed of sedans with some familiar names. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Today's video is sponsored by Blackhawk007.com, your new automotive news website. Make sure if you want to see more videos like these, car news and car reviews, make sure to check out Blackhawk007.com. Here's a tour of the website. Blackhawk007.com is your new automotive news website compared to that of Car and Driver, Road and Track, Motor Trend, Car Scoops. This is your new automotive news website for all of your car news and car reviews, from U.S. automaker news to non-U.S. automaker news as foreign news, and a dedicated page for all of your Mopar news articles as well too. Tips on what and what not to do when buying and selling a car, consumer stories, spy photos of future vehicles, videos as well too, future products coming out in 2026, product reviews, all that here on Blackhawk007.com. Blackhawk007.com is your new automotive news website. Check it out for all of your automotive needs. Okay, so let's talk sedans, okay? I just recently reviewed the Pontiac counterpart of this vehicle, which was the Pontiac G6, okay? And I gave you an entire breakdown of all of the sedans that went through redesigns. There was a big boom in mid-size sedan redesign. The Chevy Malibu was a mid-size sedan. The Pontiac was born in 06. Then you had the Ford Fusion, right? 06. Then in 07, you had the Nissan Altima and you had the Toyota Camry, okay? Then you had the, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Hyundai Sonata, right? Then you had the Kia Optima. Then in 08, you had the Honda Accord, and you guessed it, the Chevy Malibu. Now we're in one, okay? And this is the 2012 model, okay? This is the car that refuses to die. And why was this car so popular? It was a popular name that came back in the 1996 model year, and it was in a fleet of sedans back when GM was all in. You had the smallest car, which was the Chevy Cavalier at the time. Then you had the Chevy Lumina, okay? Then you had the Chevrolet Caprice, okay? Then you had a performance variant of it, that famous Impala, okay? And that 96 Impala is what everybody remembers, but nobody, if you remember, it actually came out in 94. 96 was the most famous year. I don't know why. We're going to do some more research on that later if I can find a car to do a review on. But you had a car that was in between. Ford had their version of it too. They had the Ford Taurus. They had the Ford Escort. Okay. And they had the Ford Crown Victoria. They had a plethora of sedans too. But then they had a little car in between, like it just wasn't making sense. It was called the Ford Mondeo. Who remembers the Mondeo? Okay. But in the United States, it was called the Contour. Okay. This was their European Mondeo for the United States. Chevy applied that same recipe and said, okay, we're going to go against the Contour, and we're going to bring back a historic nameplate that has absolutely nothing to do with its muscular roots. We're going to bring back the Chevy Malibu. Same, very similar in size, but who would have known that this middle child in an entire family of sedans in the mid-90s would be not only the longest lasting sedan in Chevy's lineup in history. There has been no breaks in returns since then. It has been on sale since 96. That it would also be the only sedan left. Not only the only sedan left, literally the only car. Because you had that, and then you had the Camaro, which was already discontinued. This is literally the last car left. Why is it still here in a fleet full of SUVs? Because sedans are not going anywhere, and I told you so. Okay? We are currently on a 2026 generation Chevy Malibu. Great running car. And yeah, we're going to take you on a tour, show you all of the features. And while we're at it, we can start with the interior right here, okay? This is the LT trim, okay? They had 3 packages. They had the LS, they had the LT, and then they had the LTZ, okay? This particular generation came out 08, and it had that very famous flat back design. Now I remember exactly what happened here. They had this car to 2012. This was the very last year. For some reason, it was very controversial, and Chevy did an emergency redesign, which was 2013. Okay, that would then go with the 2011 Buick Regal that came out, shared that same platform. The Regal was 2 years ahead of Chevy's emergency redesign. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Around that time, it usually was like a good like 6 years or 5 years before they did that. But they called it an emergency redesign. He was already working on the next one. So yeah, so the first 96 started from 96, and then if I'm not mistaken, it went all the way until 2003. So 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Then they redesigned it for the 2004 model year, and then they still continued the other one for 2004 and 2005 as the Chevrolet Malibu Classic, because I guess they was getting so many sales off of that, and that wonderful 3.1 engine liter V6. I called that car a pile of crap because I just simply didn't like the design. If you remember. Yeah. So then the 04 came out. They had it from 04, 05, 06, and 07. Okay. And then they did an emergency redesign. 08, 09, 010, 11, and 12. They said we're doing another emergency redesign. How many emergency redesigns are you going to do? I feel like this was the first major player. I feel like design-wise, this was like right there, the big leagues. This one right up there with Altima, Honda Accord, Camry. I think when that era of redesigns came through, for even Ford, I think that was like the beginning of we're not here to play. Every company in the United States that had a redesign of their sedan from 06 to 08 had some really nice designs. It was their first entry to like the big leagues. Okay. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the Hyundai Sonata, the Kia Optima, I felt like they were the lame ducks of that redesign. However, Kia did a redesign in 2010 that really like stepped up the game, but I still think it was like kind of like one of those last players. But this right here was like really considered the next generation of automotive design. And it was nice. You know, this thing is like a spaceship. And it had an actual design language that actually carried on with that Malibu all the way up to now. It has a very double scoop right here, almost like kind of like a wing design and interior. And I think it's really nice basic design. You had the LTZ trim, which came with leather seats. You had a sunroof. This one comes with cloth seats. But what's cool about this is it's manual seats. So what happens is you would hit the bar. This is manual. Hit the bar. That's manual. But on the driver's side, what was cool about this was you had the back support, your back lumbar support. And then you had a button, automatic button to raise your seat or to lower your seat. You had the tilt button to lean it back and then leaning forward. And then that. As far as the automatic transmission that they had, you had your park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then you had a manual mode. We like to use what's called the slap shift, where you could slide and go up a gear, kind of get like a little feel of a manual. But on this one, nope. You had a button right here. You would just press it up, the up shift. I don't like these kinds. I'm gonna be honest with you, don't like it at all. But nevertheless, it had a manual mode where you can shift your own gears. Once again, if you don't know at what RPM to do it, don't do it. You know what I mean? Most people know when they hear the rev point when to shift to the next gear. You don't want it to redline, you know what I mean? Especially on these cars. They had 2 powertrains, 3 actually. One was you had 4-cylinder, which is this one right here. It was an Ecotec, okay? And then you had the 3.6 V6, and also what you had was hybrid. This was the introduction of Chevy Malibu's first hybrid. We're going to get into that in a minute. Everything else was, it looked like some parts were also carried over from the previous gen Malibu. Like if you look up here, you have these lights right here, straight still from the previous gen Chevy Malibu. Other than that, I think maybe some of the buttons might have been this. Oh, look at the door handle. The door handle right here, that was definitely carried over from the Malibu. They actually just flipped it the other way. You're not slick, Chevy. And also, these cars came equipped with a remote start. So, not bad, right? Not bad for a midsize sedan. It's not the top trim level. However, the battery on this one doesn't work. You also had Bluetooth. This is the introduction of Bluetooth. Now, these back in the day, they just started with the Bluetooth in the mid to late 2000s era. These were not good for you to like listen to your music or anything, but they just started it rolling it out into like mainstream sedans. I think one of the first GM vehicles to have the Bluetooth feature was actually the late 90s Cadillac Escalade. Fun fact there. Yes. Way ahead of its time, right? But around this time they started rolling out to mainstream sedans or mainstream cars, period. So this one was just good enough for your phone calls, hands-free talking, so you don't get caught on a phone in your hand, so you don't get pulled over. This one right here, common issues with this vehicle were basically motor-wise, the 4-cylinder. This one right here, camshaft and crankshaft sensor needs to be replaced. So that's not bad, but like I said, y'all know how I feel about those Ecotecs. This is a different liter of Ecotec, but like I said, you really have to keep up with your oil changes. So lucky, this is a special one right here because this was a 1-owner car. So older lady had this great care taken care of for this car. Everything kept up with. I'm even looking at the sticker right now, and it shows that you still have like 1,000 miles left to the next oil change. So she's really kept it up. And she got it done at Valvoline. So you can really tell that this person was really like keeping up with their stuff. The story behind this vehicle was that they thought it was some major engine issues. So basically what happened was they lied to him. Because I don't know how he didn't catch this. It needs a camshaft and a crankshaft sensor. So what happens is the camshaft sensor and the crankshaft sensor, they work together. They coincide. I changed one on the Nissan Altima. Remember the Altima video that I did? I replaced the camshaft position sensor. because it was making the car run a little rough. That's kind of like pretty much what this is doing. Same formula. Crankshaft system has everything to do with the word. When you crank the car, start it up. Car's supposed to spark the air and fuel. All that's supposed to coincide with the signal that you send from the cranking to start the car. So this needs the exact same thing that Nissan did. So fix that, you got a pretty decent car. But other than that, when it's driving, it's on, it stays on, it holds idle. And we're gonna see how that drives in a minute. But if you remember, good old OnStar had a lot of features to love. I used to use it all the time in my 2011 Buick Regal almost 15 years ago. And I used to call GM OnStar, ran out of gas on purpose just to see how long it would take for them to show up and bring some gas to me. So yeah, that was fun. So also, let's go to the back seats. Back seats have very comfortable space back here. It is a 60-40 split. So what happens is you would press this button right here, go to the trunk, open up the trunk. You have two lever releases. You pull those lever releases, and then you could fold the seats down if you need extra cargo. That was the case on the previous generation Malibu. On this one, I wanted to make some cliff notes to correct it. You would pull on the inside and just pop it open. And right there, easy access to your 60-40 split on both sides of the seats. So a lot of practicality in this car, including a two-tier compartment right here. You lift this one on the left, it opens up a small little compartment right here. Then you pull the right one that lifts up the entire one. Massive space down here, so not bad in here. And then you have your two cup holders. You have a little bit of extra compartment space on each side of the cup holder for some coins or whatever. And then you can pull this shut if you don't want nobody to see it. If you have no cups to put in there, or your big gulp or whatever. This is the aftermarket radio, so it has like a double din setup. So extra compartment space right here, not standard with the car. There's usually one full radio right here. But then you have extra storage right here. You can put it here. Same thing from right here, like the last Malibu, that was borrowed from the other Malibu. Stocks and everything, borrowed from the last Malibu. And then you have your glove compartment space right there. Then you have additional cup holders. Inside of here, you have extra space behind the cup holder to put extra things there. Same thing on the passenger side. And also, you have it, you don't have it back there, but then you have two fold outs right here and more compartment space right there. You have a 12 volt adapter right here. You have one inside in the back right here. Do they have one inside of here? No, they don't have one in here, but yeah, there's your two. And then also, what I thought was worth mentioning, you have your hooks. The hook here. So back in the day, that was really like the thing. It looks clothes right there, especially like if you're in robes going to church. Hook your robe right there. That was fine because tent is legal to have. It probably is almost as dark as you want it in the back, but where the driver is, you have to be visible to be seen, or you get pulled over, you know, unless you have a tent waiver or whatever the case may be. But that's what those hooks was for. At least they were used properly like that back in the day. To get some clothes on the dry cleaners, good stuff like that. Then you have additional compartment space inside of here on the actual armrest of the door. So plenty of space to store some stuff. So no excuse to there. And you also have additional, you guessed it, compartment space. So you will press this right here, and then you can lift that up, and then you will put some stuff in here. So plenty of compartment space. So compartment space was definitely a thing of mine. You don't have a sunglass visor right here to put my cool glasses in here. But well replaced with one right at the top of the dash right there. Air and heat works very well in this car. Buttons galore. I love a car with buttons. You have your room light. So you turn that all the way up. You want to turn the lights on in the car. And everything else is just basically high beam, low beam, brake lights. This didn't come with fog lamps. You would have to upgrade to the LTZ model, or I'm pretty sure with the lower trim levels, they were optional. You could add some of those things up there if you wanted to add a sunroof. I'm pretty sure that was optional when it was brand new. But other than that, it's a Malibu, y'all, and it's still here. And why do people like this? Because everybody don't want a SUV so bulky. And you would think, oh yeah, I can sit up high, the visibility is still poor. Here you got the windows all around you, so visibility is not bad in the sedan. And really, sedan is a choice of style. Everybody don't want a box on wheels. You know what I mean? So, and I take it personally to sedans, especially mid-size sedans. I don't need something that big, but I don't need something so small. So what do you get? You get a mid-size sedan. I'm exactly 6 feet, and I got plenty of space, and there's still space in the back for 1, 2, 3 adults. It's not bad. Not bad at all. One interesting feature I found on this car, if you look right there in the mirror, once you put this car into drive, it automatically engages the daytime running lights or headlights. Pretty damn cool, right? As far as bumps is concerned, they're not bad, you know, but GM did make cars to be able to eat up like bumps. I was in Philly, for reference, I was in Philly maybe like the night before, and I hit a crater-sized pothole. I didn't feel it too much, but I definitely heard it. It was bad. Oh man. Mayor of Philadelphia, get it together. Because yeah, that was crazy. And I could tell you right now, I probably don't want to experience something like that again. I want to say this. So the ride quality was actually not that bad in this vehicle, okay? I did a drive 2 hours back when I first got this car, near Paterson, New Jersey, all the way back to Delaware. So not bad of a ride. It was smooth, shifting, all of that. These are like butter smooth family cruisers. I never, and to be honest, if you want my opinion, it is a very smooth 4-cylinder, but I was never a fan of General Motors 4-cylinders. GM knows how to build V6s, so if you were to get this car, I highly recommend you get the V6 version. The reason I got this is because this 4-cylinder happens to be a well taken care of 4-cylinder, but I typically don't recommend the 4-cylinders in these cars. They tried their best to engineer them as you know what I mean, like a V6, but at the end of the day, it's not a V6. They're underpowered. I believe that the size of your car should match with the engine fit for that size. So I've always had this philosophy that compact cars should have 4-cylinders, okay? Mid-size cars should have V6s, and full-size sedans should have V8s. I feel like that's just proper. If we were in the 90s, right, and the 2000s, and you know, you need the right motor to fit and perform how the car properly works. So basically, long story short, that's what this car needs. It needs a V6 because the 4-cylinder is just screaming for dear life. You understand what I'm saying? And it overworks the motor because the car cannot handle it, you know, as far as the size is concerned. You know, the displacement. The car's too damn big to handle a motor like this. It's only going to last but for so long. So I really think that, you know, like this is why I'm glad that you know, Chevy provide more than one powertrain, you know, because right now they only provide 4 cylinders. That's just the thing now, you know what I mean? I don't like it. I don't like it, but hey, whatever. But I will let you know this. Obviously, Chevy figured something out by now, but just because a car saves you more on gas because it's a 4-cylinder, don't mean that it's more reliable. If you want this car, 2008 to 2012 Chevy Malibu, get the V6, okay? I want to tell you that GM, Nissan, and Toyota was one of the best to do it. And if you want my personal opinion, GM was way ahead of the game when it came to V6s. GM was the best to do it. I'm not talking about sports V6s, even though GM knew what they were doing then. You remember that, like I told you, the Buick GNX was blowing out Corvettes with V6s. You know what I mean? GM was the best to do it. Toyota wasn't, you know, no. Nothing was touching GM when it came to their V6s. You know, so I think for the money to find a used one on the market, if you can find a really nice used one for like $3,000, you got yourself a win. You know what I mean? They're all over the market. So just find you a good one, get a V6. Stay away from the 4s and the common issues that they have with them. And you know, you got a little bit more gas you got to put into it. Maybe you got to put 93 in it. But hey, look, you got yourself a more reliable engine if you get the V6.
Kind of makes me wonder why the hell so many people are trying to tell me to slow down. Seems like motherfuckers should be shutting the hell up and enjoying the show.